Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. We're talking spring position battles, the most intriguing battles on this squad. We're talking about the offense today. And CJ, we're talking about where we're going to start. I'll give the audience 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count as to where we're going to start with the position battles that are most important on this offense.
Well, you mean left guard, and left guard? Are those the 3 that we're talking about here? That to me is, of course, the glaring question. And it obviously, and you know, rightfully so, given the struggles and inconsistencies we saw in the roller coaster that was 2025. But when you look ahead, obviously, you're still waiting. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but still waiting on the eligibility request for Lawrence Seymour. But what does that mean for Texas going into the spring? Because we already knew that should Seymour be approved for the fall, he was not going to partake in the spring, right? So who was going to be your guy at that position? It was, of course, Oregon State left guard transfer Dylan Sikorsky. You had Seymour coming in the fall, Jordan Coleman, a couple other pieces in there as well, but I kind of pieced it down to just those 2. Now, what then does that mean for Jaden Chapman, who's also going to be in the conversation? What about an Andre Kojo? Could he push if he is fully healthy? It's going to be interesting. But right now, left guard is top of the list when it comes to which positions we're watching the closest at the moment.
Rod, I think it's the left side of the line, period, to expand on CJ's point, because with Trevor Gooseby out this spring, whoever your number 3 tackle is going to be, they're going to get the first team reps this spring. So whether that's Kojo or Chapman or maybe Jonte Newman gets a shot at it. I mean, whoever's going to be that guy working opposite Melvin Siani for now, that'll in theory be your number 3 tackle when camp starts, that guy's going to get every chance to prove himself this spring.
Yeah, and just like, you know, we've talked about with the secondary, you like for guys to be cross-trained so that you do have more options, right? More solutions potentially to put your best 5 out there. But big spring for guys who, you know, suddenly have become kind of lost in the conversation. Guys like Andre Kojo, you brought up Jaden Chapman is another name here too. But ultimately, you know, this is going to be, I think Longhorn fans are still hoping and wishing that the NCAA will grant an extra year to Lawrence Seymour, because then this will be, I think, an easy conversation to have, because I think he would end up being that guy. But Sikorsky, I think it's big for him too, because he can come in and potentially win that job as well. He's got some experience. So at least you have options at that spot right now. At least you got, you know, 2-3 guys that you think are going to be able to compete for that job. But ultimately, I think you got to worry about trying to get your best 5 out there, which is why I love the fact of cross-training guys, especially when you can experiment during the spring. We talked about that too in the secondary. So for Texas, ultimately at that left guard spot, that's your biggest question mark, biggest weakness on the offense, period. You can devote all your resources and attention to try to figure out a plan A, B, and C for it, because whatever you figure out, ultimately, there's a chance it could all blow up in your face when the season starts, which happened to them, by the way, last season. Mm-hmm. So make sure you got a plan just in case it doesn't work out. You got a plan A, B, and C for that offensive line, especially at the left guard spot.
CJ, we know Sark loves using 12 personnel, loves 2 tight end looks. We know the pony package, you've got the option for it to come back, and it should come back with Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown, and throw in Derek Cooper there for whatever kind of run he gets as a true freshman. And you've got a pretty good group of wide receivers. In terms of what the primary position groups are going to be, you know, when you look at your personnel groupings, which of these position battles you think is most important to figuring out the identity of this offense in 2026?
That's a great question. And, you know, of course, putting the offensive line aside here, is it just as simple as, do you just love the 3 receivers that you have? Because at points in 2025, you didn't have 3 receivers that you could trust. And that's why I think early on you saw, you know, the Jack Indries and Spencer Shannon combination. And eventually that grew to Jack Indries and Jordan Washington and Nick Townsend. And we saw Amari Winston in that same conversation. Well, if the tight end position is still a strength of this team, 12 personnel won't ever go away. But do we see a decrease in usage of it as a result of Texas really loving what they have at wide receiver? And off the top 3 guys, it's hard not to get really excited for a Cam Coleman, a Ryan Wingo, and Emmett Mosley. And then that next bunch of guys that are all chomping at the bit. But sticking with the point in the conversation of competition battles, look, tight end is interesting, right? coming in from Michigan State is Michael Masunis. I'm a big fan of his. I think he provides some of that inline blocking, that approach to the tight end position that Texas maybe hasn't had, consistently when it comes to physicality, being able to move and being willing to move people bigger than him. But that's going to be interesting because we know Nick Townsend's a guy that they like. Amari Winston's shown some flashes. Where else do they show potential in that tight end room that allows them to keep going into 12 personnel as often as they like? I think we'll have to wait and see.
Rod, is it running? We'll get to wide receiver in a minute, but is it running back or tight end to you that you feel like holds more of the key to what the identity of this offense is going to be?
Sark has been stubborn about tight end, and he's openly said tight end, second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. So just taking his words, that's what he said. But for this particular team, looking at the weapons and analyzing them myself, I think it's running back. I think you have potentially one of the most explosive backfields, top 5 most explosive backfields in the country with Smothers and Raleek Brown. I think you should, and you have a history of two being very successful in 2-back sets, as I've documented over and over again on this channel, right? And so you have a package for it. Matter of fact, you had one of the best offensive minds in college football at weaponizing 2-back sets when you had Brendan Marion here, right, with the go-go offense. So you got a real good, to me, everything points to, and by the way, I've looked at it, this backfield, it looks like it's more explosive than your Jaden Blue Weisner backfield. I think you'll utilize it in a similar way, but some of the numbers, and like I said, I'll give them all to you here, but just trust me, statistically, they look like it's going to be a more explosive backfield than the Jaden Blue Weisner backfield. The only question is, will they have one of these backs be as successful in the receiving game, like the down passing game, like Jaden Blue was, because he was exceptional for a running back in that regard. So I think it's the running backs, guys, and it just like it was when you had Bijan and Rojo, right? It wasn't about the tight ends then. It was like, the tight ends, but no, it's a Bijan and Rojo offense. And I think it was and Gunnar Helm was awesome too in 2024 too. So you had a little bit of both. And ideally, you'd like the best of both worlds. Nobody expected to see Gunnar Helm, rise to the occasion and have one of the greatest seasons, if not the greatest season in Texas football history for a tight end. But I don't know if I see that right now. And I said I didn't see it from Gunnar Helm. So hopefully Nick Townsend, Masunas will surprise us in that regard. But these running backs are proven commodities. And if I'm sorry, I would unleash them, because with the weapons you have now at the wide receiver position, teams are going to be scared and they're going to back off. They're going to play 2 deep and they're going to play 3 deep to limit the explosive plays. And these running backs can eat them up underneath the running game and in the passing game, in my opinion.
CJ, we know Sark loves a bell cow running back, and other than really last year because Trey Wisener was banged up, he's had one of those guys emerge that got a majority of the snaps, the carries, the targets. Does it matter who starts out of this group? Do you see one of these guys, whether it's Smothers or Brown, emerging as kind of that bell cow running back?
This is probably the toughest question we're going to face all episode here, Jeff, but I don't think so. If it did, I think I would lean more towards Hollywood Smothers. I was just more of a fan watching him in 2025 than Raleek Brown, and that's no knock on Brown. Obviously, we talked about already how elusive he is in open space, how quickly he is to make guys miss. Both of them have that home run hitting ability, but something about the vision and the style of the offense that NC State possessed and how that will translate to that of Sark's and Kyle Flood's kind of baby of the run game when it comes to what they love to do in the outside zone just fits more with Smothers in my eyes. But I don't think it ultimately matters. And Rod, I'm with you. I hope we do see more 2-back sets, because the misdirection, the creativity that you could have with both of them would certainly leave front sevens flustered and not knowing which way to look, knowing the speed and the home run ability of both. But right now, if I had to handicap it just a little bit, I think Smothers would be the guy by a hair at the moment.
No, I'm with you, CJ and Rod. When we talk about wide receiver, we always talk about the circle of trust. And quite frankly, CJ, I'm with you on Hollywood Smothers, because I like Raleek Brown as kind of a Swiss Army knife. I don't really want to pigeonhole him into kind of one specific role. So, Rod, I'll set you up with that. Could Raleek Brown be kind of an honorary member of the circle of trust? And how big do you see? We always talk about how big the circle is going to get. And look, probably 4, maybe 5 is about as big as it's probably ever going to get. Who's in that circle of trust? Who's in there, you think, by the end of spring practice?
Yes, interesting you brought that up about the running backs, because Sark has said the running back, the most underutilized position in the passing game, a weapon in the passing game. And in 2024, both Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue had 50-plus targets. They were top 10 in running back targets in the country. I think you will get something similar to that with this duo with Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown. But about the circle of trust, that's interesting, man, because when Sark really like a core group of wide receivers, he usually doesn't add to them throughout the season unless there's injury and forces his hand. So we know the big 3. Dalen McCutcheon, man, it was impressive. And I'll give CJ credit, actually, because CJ is the one that said picked him out of all the young wide receivers to be the first one to break through and separate. And he did. And he was on the outskirts, all right, on the periphery of that circle of trust. But, man, Jermaine Bishop is special. And like I said, I remember talking to Brandon Harris, and he was like, "Hey, what freshman's gonna make the biggest impact? Who's gonna stand out?" And he kept blushing, talking about Jermaine Bishop. So, what I've watched, the young man is special. I know he's small, but nobody knows how to weaponize a small receiver better than Steve Sarkisian, because he's got the blueprints. As Devontae Smith, as Xavier Worthy. So I know he won't get the reps and snaps of the big 3, but I can see Sark saying, all right, we got like 5 plays, and we're going to have him in there for these 5 plays, so he knows exactly what to do, and everybody knows exactly where he's going to be, and I can see them trying to get him some early touches to let his confidence start to grow and boost, because once these other guys leave, he's going to be the guy for the offense.
Definitely, and that kind of leads more. I know we talked a little bit before we went live, who might be that fight for the 4th or 5th spot in that wide receiving room. And, I don't think it's by any coincidence that Sark and the staff went out and added Sterling Burkhalter. And that's, again, a name that we haven't talked a lot about and probably gets swept away just a little bit because of all the other shiny toys and prospects that Texas brought in. But look, you're bringing in a guy with 76 career receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving. That's something when you look at the rest of this list and guys in that room, basically trounces everybody else combined, right? He has that production. So, Jeff, I'll throw it to you. Outside of the top 3, who is that 4th? Who is that 5th? I mean, is it too early to tell, or do you have some guys that right now you're looking at the spring saying this is going to be a fun battle to follow and kind of see how it all plays through?
I was thinking about that, and my initial reaction was I want to give Khalil Lockett a chance to go win a role. I don't know where it's going to be. And, if he's on the field, hey, what does that mean for the other guys? I want to give Khalil Lockett a chance to win a role. And as I'm thinking about that, there's 3 second-year guys that it's kind of now or never, I think, maybe for all 3 of them, depending on if they're going to have a role on this offense in 26. I think they've got to do it in spring ball. I don't think they'll have time to do it in camp. It's Khalil Lockett, Amari Winston at tight end, and James Simon at running back. I think those 3 guys, I mean, CJ, I don't sound too harsh, but I mean, if those 3 guys are ever going to have a role at Texas, if it's not now, I don't know when it's going to be.
With the way that Texas has approached the portal, with the way that they recruit, it's hard to kind of put it into a 2-year timeline to get on the field and say, now you have a role, or risk the chance of never becoming a guy that Texas utilizes fully. But that's kind of how it is. And on the flip side of that, 2 years in, do you risk a 3rd year of not seeing the field if you're one of these guys? So it's harsh, and it's unfortunate that this is, again, a conversation that we're having across multiple positions on the offensive side of the football. But that's the reality of where college football is at the moment.
Yeah, Rod, CJ hit the nail on the head for me with that. It's probably not fair and not realistic, but player development has gotten so expedited. If you're a coach, other than offensive line and quarterback, you can't really afford to wait on skill guys to develop, because there's a plethora of them in the portal if you need to go fill a role.
Yeah, and I think CJ brought up a good point too from the player perspective, man. You can't you can't take the risk of sticking around too long and getting recruited past, or them just bringing a portal veteran guy at your position and deciding, yeah, he's the walk-in starter. We're not even having a competition. It's his job. And, you only got one window to get it done this time too. So I think that it's an urgency now, unfortunately, I don't think it's a good thing for the coaches and the players. It's definitely going to stunt a lot of guys' development. No doubt about that. But I think ultimately for Texas, they're still in an advantageous position here. Let's not act. I mean, yes, they're going to have a little attrition, but they're still in a position to bring in the best athletes and recruit the top blue chips that can contribute right away. Because that's ultimately what you want now. You want to bring in guys those young guys can contribute right away, and then still be able to bring in impact veterans like a Cam Coleman, like a Rasheed Miles, those kind of guys. And you want that mix ultimately. And Texas is in a position to do that. So that's why some of these young guys, them playing early is actually, more than a reasonable conversation, because Texas wants them to contribute early. They need them. They need them to be part of their depth on these teams.
Yeah, and CJ, in closing, I think with those young guys, I'll throw Dalen McCutcheon in there too as a second-year guy. At the very least, the spring development of those guys will give the staff a pretty decent idea. It'll start to paint the picture. I know I'm getting a little far ahead of myself, but based on what those guys do or don't do this spring, it'll give the staff a pretty good idea of, hey, we need to put together our portal plan for going into 2027. And do these guys, do we need something at this position, or do we feel good about this guy's trajectory to where maybe we don't need to take another at fill in the blank position?
Yep.
Yeah. And again, this is a conversation I don't think the staff likes having. I don't think fans really enjoy us talking about it either, but what do those plans look like further down the line? And it's easy to sit here and say, well, you just recruited all this talent out of high school. Give them a chance, right? I want to see what a Khalid Lockett, what a Cohen Brown, what a Chris Stewart, what these guys can do. Well, for what we don't know or what we aren't given an opportunity to see behind the closed doors, the staff does know. And the staff does have to make those contingency efforts. So to your point, it's going to be key for not just this 2026 year, but for spring, for summer conditioning. They're fighting for spots in 2027 to say that there is a trajectory path for these guys to become the guy at Texas. And again, they recruit well. Now it's about making sure that, one, they're happy to remain here, and two, they continue to see that developmental track that will become ultimately the future of this program as well.
Roster volatility is the name of the game in college football right now. All right, CJ, Rod, thank you guys for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Just want to remind you, if you're not a member, over to ontexasfootball.com, get over to the website, check out all the news, notes, and nuggets we're dropping on a daily basis. Go ahead and participate in the message board conversation. Lots of good stuff going on the website. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, anytime we go live or drop a new video, you're not missing any of our Longhorn coverage all year round. For CJ, for Rod, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time.